It looks like the Secretary of Defense has the heat put on him and he is being pushed back on his heels and the pressure is being applied as to some of the, I guess you could say, controversial topics are being discussed as they are trying to neutralize gender throughout the U.S. military. This has been noted for many years, but a congressman has put this pressure on him with an open letter and it's pretty spicy. This letter comes from Tom Cotton, which is a Republican senator out of the state of Arkansas, which has put this letter in front of Secretary Lloyd Austin. This was on September 8th of this month. And he says, "Dear Mr. Secretary, I write regarding the department's decision to incorporate quotations gender neutral, end quote, language into decoration and award citations. Our military apparently will now use quotations themselves, which is not even a word. I hasten to add, instead of quotations, himself or herself to describe heroic or distinguished actions. Here is the absurd model language." It says in quotations, rank, first name, middle, last, junior, United States military service, distinguish themselves by superior meritorious service in a position of significant responsibility as position and duty assignment from month year to month year. The previous guidance simply referred to service members as himself or herself, and I want to stress this language isn't referring to unspecified personnel in the abstract or large numbers of troops. It refers to a specific named person whose preferred gender is presumably known. On a related matter, by the way, the Secretary of the Army apparently disagrees with this gender-neutral approach because she, or should I say Z, to be safe, continues to man the ramparts against gender-neutral physical fitness standards required by last year's defense bill. The department's embrace of far-left gender ideology doesn't merely subvert the English language in ways that would astonish George Orwell. Worse, it exemplifies the Pentagon leadership consumed by the fads of the faculty lounge at the time when the Army can't hit its recruiting goals. The Navy can't keep ships out of dry dock, and the Air Force can't find spare parts for planes. Please answer the following questions no later than 5 p.m. on September 15th, 2023. 1. Did you personally approve the inclusion language of Change 5 in the Manual of Military Decorations and Awards? If not, when did you first learn of the change? 2. Under the updated guidance, may service members request the use of the male or female pronoun on their award citation and at promotion and retirement ceremonies? How will those requests be treated? And 3. What other official documentation within the DoD, Department of Defense, requires gender-neutral language, such as replacement of himself and herself with themselves? I also would welcome a reply that this whole episode was just a practical joke or a decision you immediately reversed when it came to your attention. Sincerely, Tom Cotton. And if you look at the footnote of this, he jokingly, I would say here, says, if I may be so bold as to assume your preferred gender, noted when he says, Dear Mr. Secretary, and footnotes it down there. I just wanted to note I've checked the Twitter of Lloyd Austin as well, which shows that he's made no official statement regarding any kind of rebuttal to this letter that was addressed to him. So I'm assuming we might find some kind of rebuttal at the deadline of this that might be reported to the public. If you guys like what I cover here on this channel, especially very controversial topics like this, and you like the forum and the audience and the community that we do have here on this very page, please hit that subscribe button, like button. I hope I've earned your subscription today because I find it important to talk about these subjects. Let's get back into the news. So I want to root back to a couple things that I think are very important because history repeats itself and we can learn from history all the time. If you guys do not remember, I believe it's around 2015, 2016 era where the Chief of Naval Operations had actually tried to do this within the branch of the U.S. Navy by removing the term man or anything that could be decided to be based on gender. And so a lot of this ended up going to getting rid of rates, which many jobs in the U.S. military included, for example, hospital corpsmen, which had man at the end, or yo man, or certain things like that that actually had the gender as part of the title itself. And they were trying to get rid of that by going to generic ranks such as petty officer or whatever else. So this is not the first time that we have seen something like this on this aspect. On top of that, I would say it is also very important to understand a couple things when it comes to writing awards. These awards are public record. If you ever receive an award, you can receive the citation, understand what it is for, and you can read that in its entirety. These are public records. So it is important because these will be historical documents, right? Like, This is not something that is just willy-nilly. For example, if you talked about a Medal of Honor, a Navy Cross, things like that that are important that people might want to read about in history. This is changing history in its own right and in its own way. Now, I will tell you this. Something that I want you guys to understand is that these are signed off by individuals that do hold public office or power. So I don't understand the legal limitations of talking about this, but whenever a award citation is presented to somebody, it is bottom lined by some kind of authoritative power that is out there and is able to actually be able to award this to the individual. Now, when you look at that, that is an individual that is signing this. How is that going to affect freedom of speech? Because this is something that has to be understood. Like, would there be a commander or a commanding officer or somebody that would say, no, I will not utilize this or I will go against this? How would that be taken in context if this is the truth? Now, I will also want to add here that when you look at, for example, the cemetery over at Arlington National Cemetery, my buddy Ben has mentioned this when we talked about it, was that none of those tombstones have gender on it. And even including when you look at official records, such as a DD 214, which is a summary of someone's service as far as name, the dates, the awards they received, none of this actually includes any of these identifying factors. So it makes me wonder or question, why is this now becoming an issue when it comes to writing the award or the citations and how they're written? And also on top of that, the fact that we do have in any bit of identifying factors for military members right now that have only two types of things they could identify as, we have on record. Why does this not directly reflect how that is done and how that's already identified at the time at which the award is written, what they are currently being seen as? And I would say, if anything, this is just a respect to the people of what they want to be called, right? If they are in the system, they've done all the work to say that they're X, Y, or Z, why are we trying to just make it neutral? I'd say it's taking away from their identity of what their new identity would be, right? And I don't think Cooper here actually has any falsehood in stating that thing. I just agree with what his sentiments are here. And a lot of people are looking at this argument and they're saying that this is just another stroke of the broad brush of people painting the idea that the U.S. military is not actually focusing on war fighting anymore, and the military needs to go back to focusing on that as we've moved from a wartime component fighting force into a peacetime component fighting force that's kind of just staying on the ready for the next encounter or engagement that could happen, as many people are worried about Russia, China, etc. So let's get to the bottom line of this. What do you think about it? How do you feel about it? Let me know down in the comments below, because I know this is a very divisive subject, and I think that's where this conversation continues and where a lot of people can kind of air their thoughts and how we can go about making the military better, and obviously worrying about war fighting components and things like that that are needed for our next adversary. But as always, if you guys like what I cover here, hit me up over on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.